Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is Coach Fury here, and we are back today after a little bit of a hiatus on the CBGM, the Draft Day Sports College Basketball 21 Multiplayer League, where of course those of you who have been following along will know that I have been taking charge of the Michigan Wolverines over the first season, and well, I think we had a pretty good season. We talked a little bit about it last time, where we did fairly well during regular season, but the tournament play kind of let us down in the end. Well, we've gone through that period. We've lost a couple of players to the draft, and now, well, we're back into the recruiting phase after the coach hirings phase and the transfer phase. So I didn't do an episode during the transfer phase because, well, to be frank, there was nobody there that I really was too worried about trying to bring into the program. So, obviously main focus for us is going to be on recruiting this year, and well, we're going to dive into that a little bit today, talk a little bit about maybe who could be of interest to us and why that's possible, and talk a bit about some of these top recruits as well. So for those of you who maybe don't know, where we've been talking a little bit about it in other episodes, we have a fairly good budget here at Michigan, but at sometimes, we're certainly not an elite program. We're not a mid-tier program. I would say we're sort of in between the two, where we are probably several prestige points, several bits of budget money away from being what I'd consider like a true top team, where you can basically go and try and get all the one and done players, the top recruits. And we're probably slightly better than some of the teams that sit below us in that mid-tier pack, where they, have no chance at top targets. So we have a good chance, I feel, to maybe get one good target and then another couple of guys who are going to fit our program for 4 years and build that way. So before we talk a little bit about the actual recruiting and who we might be looking at, here's our rosters for this season, really. So I guess the thing I've got in my mind that I need to think about really going forward is whether we want to do anything with Sean Singletary. I mean, he was a 5-star prospect last year. We redshirted him because of that, and we didn't need him. He's certainly going to need to develop fairly quickly to basically keep his scholarship, in my opinion, at this stage. I am a little bit concerned about him. But the other redshirt we had, Jojo Geeson, looks like he's a good player. I mean, he's going to be pretty good for us. He's going to replace probably Larry Beek, who for those of you following, went to the draft last year. So he fits in quite nicely for us. And obviously we've talked a little bit in previous episodes about Colin Brown and Peter Greaves, the two guys that we brought in last year for recruiting, who actually, on the face of it, look pretty good. But in terms of looking at the recruiting this year and thinking about who we're going to replace, who's going to walk away from this team, well, we've got some pretty sizable holes to try and fill, in my opinion. First one is probably the biggest hole on the whole team, and that is Bernie Sweetwine, a top player. I mean, he's going to be a phenomenal pro player, in my opinion. Outside shot, inside shot, good size, good defensive ability, court IQ, handling, all in good place for being a draft prospect to the MBGM, in my opinion. So the pro league that fits off the CBGM. So we're going to have that hole at centre. I'm not necessarily too worried about this one though, because we do have Peter Greaves. It means we might have to change style a little bit in terms of how we play with both of them. Sweetwine is clearly a much better offensive player than Greaves, but Greaves is a good rebounder, fairly good passer. So I think if he develops, we might not necessarily miss a beat there. That being said, we still will need to probably bring in a post player of some sort, because, as I said, Singletary probably is not going to be up to scratch to be able to do that for us. So we are looking at post player probably. If I move back into other positions, we do have a question mark a little bit over the sort of the wing positions, but not as drastic as the front court, I think. So we've obviously got Jojo Geeson, who's going to probably play a little bit of a mix between shooting guard, maybe a small forward for us. Colin Brown is probably, I think, going to be our primary ball handler going forward, and it means Iacona will basically play in those positions as well. So Brown and Iacona kind of rotate around the sort of the handling duties and a little bit of wing. Geeson sort of play a bit of the various wing positions, maybe a bit of shooting guard as well. But it means that thinking about the recruiting for next year, with Iacona being a senior and not being able to come back, there's a hole there, and there still is a hole there, and we've talked about it many times on this this series at point guard. I would absolutely love to get a proper point guard in, just because it makes life so much easier in this game. All the handling duty is done by the point guard. You can't assign it to anyone else. So if you don't have a good point guard, in my opinion, it makes life very difficult when you're trying to run offensive sets and trying to not get turnovers and trying to do things on offense. So clearly point guard, front court are kind of going to be in position. And we have a third scholarship available. I'm kind of going to play that by ear really, and just see what's sort of there. Not necessarily worried about any other position. It's just more a case of if there's talent is there and we can probably snag someone, then we'll use that third one certainly. So that's how we look. In terms of the recruiting though, that's what I guess everyone is wondering on this show, to be honest with you. Here's how the national region is looking. In terms of our prospects, I guess the first thing to say straight out the bat is we do have some warm prospects, which is a massive improvement on last season. And mainly because, if I just quickly flick over here, in my opinion, I think it's mainly because we actually managed to get a decent first assistant coach in Chris Mullin, who is a ranked 80 recruiter. So we're not hampered by that 50 recruiter that we had last year, where we basically just could not entice anyone to come and visit our school. And we got pretty lucky, in my opinion, in terms of who we managed to find. We kind of went into the trenches, looked around in our region, managed to find a couple of guys and pick them up fairly late, in my opinion. So, hopefully this year we're going to be in a bit better position. But it's really interesting because obviously the national region, there are a couple of guys from our state in here. So we're obviously going to have a little look at them. So Robert Samuel and Garrett Berry and Derek Woolmack are certainly going to be guys in and around having a look at, because they are already warm rated for us. But top recruit Tatum is clearly not going to be interested in us. We're not going to be able to entice probably some of these outer region guys. We'll have to think about that one going forward. But interesting that shooting guards, number one position this year. Then it's front court, and the point guard position's a bit lower than it was last year in terms of national region when we're looking at it now. And I would say that from looking at this now, if I go back to overall, you can see here that there's not as much talent in this pool according to what our star ratings are. Oh, I'm on my call and watch list. Whoops. Let's go to the full recruit list. That might actually explain a little bit more here. Let's wait for that to load. But in my opinion, basically looking through this, is I don't feel there's as much top tier talent this year as there was last year, just from my initial sort of looking around. So yeah, you can see here, in terms of overall, the 5-star recruits, there's probably only top 25 are 5-star. Rest are all pretty much 4-star. So I think last year, there was a lot more 5-star recruits coming into the into the college programs around the league. So something to bear in mind. There's not much top tier talent, which means that all these programs that are above us in prestige are going to be aggressively going for these top 25 guys, in my opinion. So let's flick over and have a little look at the Midwest region and see what we've got here. So this is where obviously we're going to focus most of our time, to be honest with you. And you can see there we've already done a bit of our actions, a bit of our scouting, taking a look at some of these guys. And well, I think we're in good shape, to be honest with you. We've already had a couple of visits, a couple of good bits of feedback from our guys we've been looking at. There's obviously some guys here who just have no interest in us, and we'll have to work our way slowly down this list and kind of eliminate guys. But, off the bat, Robert Samuel, who is a top-ranked prospect, looked like we're high on his list. We're going to have to work on him, I think, coming into into the recruitment and then the visit stage. We'll certainly work on him. There's some good prospects up here. I think we're going to, for me personally, I think we're only sort of second phase in here at this stage. We're going to have to work down these recruits here, further down the list now, and really just understand what options we've got in terms of first option, second option, third option, fourth option. But I think we're in a good place. I'm happy with the fact that we've already got guys who are just already interested in us, which is just an improvement on last year. If we pop over to the international region, I haven't really looked at this too much, to be honest with you. There's a couple of 5-star guys in there, but obviously you have to do a lot more work to try and entice these guys over, and they're they're a little bit more of an unknown. So that's kind of how we're going to approach the recruiting phase. I think I'm not going to give too much away at this stage in terms of specifically who we're looking at, who's interested in us. Don't want to give that away too much at this stage because obviously everyone else is going to be piling in to try and get their recruits. We'll obviously do a bit of a retrospective when we get further along, and obviously we'll probably post videos slightly delayed from this point onwards to basically make sure that we're not giving away too much information too early in terms of our own exports. But I'm pretty happy with the fact that our roster this year. I think we've got a good sizable budget. I managed to get about 50,000 left again, which gives us plenty of room for manoeuvre in terms of we can basically do what we like at this stage of recruiting. So we'll certainly work on that. But interested to hear what you guys think. I mean, you can see here just a quick snapshot of guys who are interested in us, not interested in us in terms of our region. Is there anyone you think we could maybe possibly be targeting? Any positions you think we have of need? Any real skill sets based on what we've seen on the first season? Do you agree with me? We need a point guard and probably a forward centre player, and then maybe just a little bit of a lucky draw if we find someone who just is really interested in us, who we really like, and regardless of position. Interested in your thoughts. As I said many times, I'm still learning through this. This is only my second ever season in a multiplayer league for the Draft Day Sports College Basketball, and first time I've kind of been playing this with any real energy and real time to try and improve on this. So certainly interesting feedback. And as always, guys, if you're enjoying the episodes, hit that like button and subscribe button, and you can follow them as they come along. They're going to come up a bit more regularly now as we get into the recruiting phase and we start talking a little bit more about some of the things that are happening in the league. Didn't want to give you too much in terms of transfers, as I said. So we'll certainly continue to progress through. Hopefully we can get another couple of good recruits in and continue to build this roster over sort of the next several years to bring it from, as I said, that sort of middle sort of pack team to hopefully a top tier team. That is the aim. As you can see, our expectations are a little bit lower this year, so I'm confident we can achieve those, and we'll see where we go from there.